if God could do time travel, wouldn't he then simply go back in time and have a longer talk with Adam and Eve prior to the fall in an attempt to make things right? It seems to me that God and his timing is always going forward, not backward, all within his sovereignty. Thus, it would seem like time travel wouldn't be possible, as it would really mess up space time, the continuum there, and negate God's sovereignty, which is impossible. So how would we make sense of time travel and all of that?
Yeah, so the short answer is time travel is impossible. It's fun for a science fiction story. You have to suspend your beliefs a lot because the contradictions pop up real fast. And historically, I mean, other than a few Jewish mystics I'm aware of, most people historically were like, yeah, God can't change the past. Like, that's just, omnipotence just doesn't apply to the past because the past is over and done with. Omnipotence applies to what happens next. And that's usually the end of the story. So there wasn't like a ton of interest in like time travel stuff in the past. But now we live in a world where like, why not? So if you change, if you've got God going to the past, in order to avoid certain kind of paradoxes, it has to be the case God was always going to the past. Because if God changes the past, then it's Adam and Eve fell and Adam and Eve did not fall. Like it was the case they fell and it was not the case they fell. And you're like, well, that's a contradiction. And the way to avoid the contradiction is, it gets really crazy. You have to ask the question, when was the past changed? When was it changed? Well, you add another dimension of time called hypertime. And so when did all this these changes in the past take place? They took place in the hyper past. Now, it's already starting to sound ridiculous because now I have to talk in funny ways. I'm like, Adam and Eve did fall in the hyper past, and then at a later point in the hyper past, they did not fall. And hyper, when did God change all this stuff? Well, at hyper moment time, like it gets hyper crazy.
Yeah.
I'll just stick there because like I've got a whole chapter on this in my Time Maker book where things get really nuts, really, really fast, and it's also really funny. Like, but there's a lot of like bizarre stuff but it's just weird.
Yeah.
And if that's how implausible it is, because just the absurdities start piling up more and more, and they start hyper piling up, and it's yeah.
And then you're just going to start to dissolve out of existence.
Your hands just like,
So yeah,
no one wants that.